the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting, Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Now, could I have a mover for the approval of the agenda, please? Councillor Dillabaugh, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, I'm sorry, Hunter, moving, Dillabaugh, seconding, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Nowhere, brothers.
No.
And it's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof?
None by me.
Hearing none, thank you. Business arising from the previous Committee of the Whole, if any, and that is on page 1 to 6 in your package. Do I have any business arising? Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I just have a little thing on page 4, 131 F. Disposal of surplus vehicles, fire department leaning towards Reno Valley auction. I'm going to bring it up under 7D. So just want to be aware of that, please.
Under 7D, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. And that brings us to delegations and presentations. And tonight we have Connor Cleary regarding the speed on County Road 21 West. Connor, I'd like to ask you to please try and keep this to 10 minutes. We do have a closed session tonight, and part of it will be handled through Zoom. And we have a definite time that we're going to connect to Zoom. So we'd like to have the meeting probably over by that time. So if you could keep your presentation to your 10 minutes, that would be appreciated. Or under. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for having me. So I'd like to speak with you regarding community concern about speeding along County Road 21 west of Spencerville. In 2019, thereabouts, I spoke with various people, and eventually the speed limit was reduced. We've seen improvements. People are visibly driving slower, which is good. There are new concerns about people passing slower vehicles and more aggressive driving and tailgating. One of the previous Public Works Committee meetings, this one, had a comment along the lines of, it's only a matter of time before a major accident happens here. This is true. It can be avoided by choosing 60 or 70 kilometers per hour instead of reverting back to the 80 kilometers per hour, I feel. In my experience, there have been fewer public complaints that I've heard since the summer. The situation is now old news. Keep in mind that a traffic volume and speed study was originally conducted by the county, and they decided that 50 kilometers an hour is more appropriate for this stretch of road. However, we in 2019 and 2020 we did not intend for the speed to be reduced to 50 kilometers per hour. With our proposal to the county, we were aiming for 70 ideally, or 60 kilometers per hour at the lowest. 80 down to 50, as you can imagine, does cause pushback from travelers. Only one person who actually lives between County Road, along County Road 21, between Cleary Road and town, seems to be vocally against the reduced speed limit. There was a petition raised at one point in the spring. I bet that if the speed had been changed to 60 or 70 down from 80, that they wouldn't have complained in the first place. Additionally, snowmobile traffic is significantly up this winter, as you can imagine. Snow ends up being tracked onto the pavement, especially on days when the plows aren't working. At the abandoned railway, this is where this occurs, the old Bytown Prescott Railway. This makes the road conditions poor very suddenly for travelers, which are maybe speeding up to 80 or slowing down. The pavement condition itself is degraded in this area. Lots of truck traffic in the last 4 or 5 years up and down Cleary Road and turning into town and vice versa. And that's at the Home Hardware entrance is where I'm referencing. We have some proposals. One is a no passing zone from Cleary Road into town. There is an existing one extending this in addition to raising the speed limit from Beverly Street to Cleary Road to 60 or 70, I think would reduce people aggressively passing. The speed itself has been much improved in my opinion. But in response to aggressive driving, a raising to 80 isn't the best way to do it. I understand going from 50 kilometers an hour into town from Beverly Street would be, I think, a good idea, and I'd like to see that and keep that. But what you're going to do there is, if you can look at the diagram that I've provided in the package, top right, I've squared a spot where it just is labeled a hill. If you change the speed from 80 to 50 going into town at Beverly Street, you're making it more dangerous than it currently is by having people slow quickly, hopefully slow at all, from 80 to 50, but it's over a blind hill at an intersection where school kids wait for the bus. I also feel that snowmobile crossing signage would be a benefit at that railway. There are 3 hydro and telephone poles that a sign could easily be mounted to. That is, I'm assuming, county jurisdiction. I would like to ask them to consider this as well. But overall, I like what has happened over the last year at that spot on the road in terms of speeding reduction. Putting it back to 80 will not help continue that beneficial change, but an improvement by changing it to 60 or 70, I think is a safer transition from 80 to 50 in town. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Connor. I'll just going to ask for questions from the table. I'll start to my left with Councillor Bylaw. Any questions for Connor?
No, I have my opinion on where it stands, so I'm just gonna
Thank you. Mr.
stay
Mayor?
back for now.
Well, first thing, just a comment to the presenter. Over the course of a few years on council, I've always found it best not to speculate on what somebody else may think or say, or what you think they might think or say. So when I hear those kinds of words, I bet that if he knew this, he would have done that, is really putting words in somebody else's mouth, and that's not really fair game. But more from a point of information, Mr. Chairman, this letter is dated December the 1st, 2020, and it's addressed to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. So you can be assured, or we can be assured, that this letter is now in the hands of the engineer that's responsible for this section of road. And we have 2 staff engineers. Well, first of all, we have the Director of Public Works, who is the director of the entire portfolio. And then we have 2 engineers, and they're fully qualified engineers and very experienced, one's in charge of Leeds County, the other's in charge of Grenville County. So whoever the engineer is, and I think it's Melanie Knowles that is in charge of Grenville County, she will have this letter in her possession. And I know that because this whole matter was discussed either shortly after, I think, the letter that Township Council sent to United Counties about this issue. Now, I just can't remember at this stage what position we took in the letter that we sent to county council, but I think it was, we asked them to reevaluate the low speed limit on this section of road because it seemed to be causing some frustration of drivers, and I know that that point is raised in this presentation as well. So we asked them to look at it again, and I know that they will, but we can't expect an instant response to this, and I'll tell you why. I mean, right now, the entire Public Works Department is up to their eyeballs with capital and with budget issues. I mean, we spent another 2 hours this morning, 2.5 hours this morning, talking about the capital purchase, and all of the engineers were on the meeting. So nothing is going to happen on this issue, I think, until the budget is struck and they've got that issue behind them, and then they'll deal with these smaller issues. So I think, Mr. Chair, this is in the hands of the engineer, and I'm sure that the engineer has this letter as well as the letter from council, and they will act in the best interest of current engineering technology and road speeds and grades and sight lines, et cetera.
Thank you. Councillor Hunter?
I'm glad to see you bringing this forward, Connor, and sending the letter to counties, but it's not just coming from the township. I was the one, I think, that brought this up and suggested go back to the speed limit it was. Main reason I suggested go back to the speed limit it was is the years I've been in council dealing with something. It seems to be if you want something changed, you gotta ask for twice as much as what you want to really get it. So I like your proposal. It's really what I kind of had in my head too, that graduate rate and reduction of speed, the same as we did on number 2 coming into Cardinal. And I'm glad to see you made the point forward to them that their signage was very poor, because that's one of the things I brought up, but I didn't like that people coming out of Clary's had no idea if they pulled in, had always drove it, that they pulled out of Clary's and there was no sign saying it was 50. The 50 was up on the other side of Clary Road, so people pulled in, they pulled out and headed down to town at 70 or 80 kilometers an hour. A lot of people were getting fined for a while there and pled innocent, but didn't realize the speed had been changed. And I think hopefully the counties look at this and come up with a solution, because I don't think we're sitting now where their signs is in the 50 speed limit all the way from the other side of Clary Road is acceptable. As I said before, and you mentioned the letter, it's just a matter of time before somebody there's a serious action up here. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor. I just have a couple of questions, and I'm going to direct them to our staff, either to the CAO or through the CAO to the director. Who is responsible for the snowmobile crossing signage, if any was to be considered? Does the township look after that, or is that a county's issue?
Through the chair, with it being a county road, the signage, I believe, would fall under county responsibility.
Okay, thank you for that. And my next question is, based on the presentation tonight, will staff be sending another letter to counties outlining what happened here tonight?
Certainly, our staff will follow up with county staff advising of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no other questions. Connor, thank you so much for that. And if you so desire, stick around for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to our discussion items, and I actually see none here, and also we'll move to action information items set under figure number 7, and we'll start with A, which is a application for site plan control at 1026 County Road 2 Homes, just outside the village of Cardinal. And I don't, is Wendy on Zoom or?
Mr. Chair, Wendy was unable to attend, so if you would like, I can speak to that item.
If you would, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a little history on this particular location. Back in 2020, there was a zoning bylaw amendment to allow mini warehouse and public storage facility as a permitted use in addition to the existing uses on the property. The amendment also required that any open storage on the lot have screening from public roads. With this proposal, there is no open storage proposed on the site plan, although the applicant has taken comments from the public meeting into consideration by moving the proposed storage buildings farther behind the existing building to provide some additional screening. So the applicant has submitted the stormwater management report, including grading and drainage and a sediment and erosion control plan. The counties are satisfied with the proposed stormwater management plan. And in the interest of committee and council meeting dates and development timelines, the counties have agreed that confirmation that the desired road allowance exists by a surveyor's letter or appropriate dedication of land prior to issuance of a building permit would be an acceptable requirement. With respect to this application, it's consistent with the official plan and meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Questions, comments or concerns? Table, Councillor Hunter? Deputy Mayor, I'm so sorry. Mr. Mayor?
I have some concerns here. First of all, we have a site plan agreement in place.
That is correct.
Okay, and this is recommending that we adopt a bylaw to amend that existing site plan agreement.
Correct.
Okay, but what I see in front of me doesn't seem to be an amendment to the site plan agreement. It seems to be a site plan control agreement. And none of the conditions that were in the original agreement are duplicated in this agreement. This is a new agreement that I've got in front of me. It says right at the top, site plan control agreement. This is the agreement in its entirety. So I don't see what I've got in front of me as an amendment. I see some this is an entirely new agreement. It has its own schedules, Schedule A, Schedule B, which I see, and thank you very much for the larger scale maps. And that's it. And then there's a lot of work been done on the stormwater design, and that comprises Schedule B, which is the stormwater management report. But it's Schedule B to this new agreement. So I'm worried that all of the conditions that were imposed in the original agreement will be gone, because this is not an amendment. And I apologize to staff. I spent a lot of time on this over the weekend, but got no opportunity to call because I was in county council all morning this morning. So I'm very worried about recommending a bylaw to council when I can't really see how that bylaw is going to come out in the final works. And if I look at Schedule C, which is another schedule which talks about additional requirements, it does deal with the stormwater and sediment control and refers to Schedule B, but it doesn't deal with, there was a condition for screening, and there was another 3 or 4 conditions in our original site plan control agreement that don't seem to be reflected at all in Schedule C. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a question of process and paperwork here.
So through the chair, we can certainly review that one more time, and if there are certain requirements that are missing from that original site plan control agreement that require inclusion into this amendment, we will look to correct that and bring that forward for council.
Okay, that'll be brought forward next week.
Then we will look to bring that forward next week.
Does that satisfy your concern, Mr. Mayor?
Except I would like to know in what manner that's going to be done. Are we going to repeal the original bylaw and come up with a completely new bylaw with a new agreement? Or are we going to pass a bylaw which amends the original agreement? I know the intent is to amend the original agreement, but that's not what the paperwork that I have in front of me does. So provided that we can get that, the paperwork correct, I have no problem with the intent here.
I see. Councillor Dillabaugh?
No, as long as it's amended, site plan's amended, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, so we will,
Just a second. I believe the clerk is looking to speak.
go ahead, clerk.
Through the chair, I will follow up with Wendy, but the intent was, I believe, at least for my purposes, is to repeal and replace, so that way we don't have multiple site plans that are inconsistent floating around. So we'll deal with that and make sure it's all incorporated into a single site plan control agreement.
And just speaking to that, I agree with the clerk. That's the way I like to see it done too. Repeal and replace in its entirety.
I understand, correct. Okay, then staff has their directions from here, and we will not call a recommendation tonight. Thank you. Okay, moving on, and we now come to pole banners for communities of Cardinal, Johnstown, and Spencerville. And I see this is a follow-up to the proposal a few weeks ago regarding the Remembrance Day decorations or installation of poppies on sidewalks and whatnot. And I see staff has come up with including that idea as well as something else. So I believe, Mr. Spencer, will you highlight this for us?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In early October, there was some discussion at one of our past committee meetings about potentially having poppies installed on the sidewalks in remembrance of the cenotaph area in Cardinal. We've put together an idea that we feel might be just a little bit better than that. First off, a stencil can be made, and we can put a poppy on the sidewalks over at the Legion here, and also at the cenotaph area down in Cardinal at any time. It's relatively inexpensive to do. The upkeep would just be repainting it. The other option that we have to present in front of you this evening is a lot of communities now have street banners on poles throughout their town, whether it be North Renville, Prescott, Brockville. This idea is to, one, have banners made up with the poppies on it that would be situated at the cenotaph, and also on the hydro poles over close to the Legion here in Spencerville. And then on top of that, we would also look to extend that and have a different variation artwork on 3 other locations, 20 of them to be in Cardinal, 20 in Spencerville, and 10 in Johnstown. So the cost of doing the banners is just a little under $3,500. the recommendation is in front of you for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spencer. I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh. Any concerns or questions?
I think it's a great idea. Now, the cost of putting them, we're not gonna leave them up year round, Mr. Spencer. We're just gonna take them for the Legion week of November, is that right? Or how are we gonna do these banners?
Through the chair to Councillor Dillabaugh, the ones for the poppies could go up the month before and stay up for the month after. The other ones would stay up from spring through till late fall, and then they would come down.
Like which other ones I'm not.
We would be putting 20 other banners up throughout the streets of Cardinal.
Yeah,
20
Spencerville and Tennant, yeah.
in Johnstown, that would have different, a different artwork layout. It wouldn't be the Remembrance Day poppy on them.
Oh, okay, I
So it'd
see.
be other events.
Exactly.
Going on throughout the township.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay, I have it now. Good.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
So I showed the cost at $59.50 each, times 50 is $2,900, and I think I heard you say $3,500?
Through the chair to Mr. Mayor, there's a total of 58 banners to be constructed, to be made, 50 for the streets, and then the additional 8 are the ones for the poppies. So there's a total of 58 at $59.50 per banner, for a total of $34.85, I believe it is.
Okay. So second question,
Go ahead.
the question of the poppies on the sidewalks, I'd just like to make a comment about that. I think it's a great idea in a way, but I have a worry in another way. If we were to paint them, say a month in advance of November the 11th, and then remove them after November the 11th by over painting them, I'd be happy. But what worries me is that we paint them, they look fresh and they look eye-catching and they serve the purpose over that November the 11th period. But then over the next 2 or 3 months, they become very scruffy. And I think it degrades it degrades the intent to allow them to become scruffy and not fresh. And I don't like to see that happen. So, I don't like to charge the staff with repainting them every couple of months or something like that. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to make it happen, but after the period of time, and we're over that November the 11th period, it's better to remove them than to allow them to degrade over the course of 3 or 4 months, and then they get neglected, and I don't really want staff repainting and repainting and repainting.
I think Mr. Spencer wants in.
Through you to Mr. Mayor. I would agree with your comments, Mr. Mayor. That's why we came up with the idea of the banners.
Yeah.
And quite possibly maybe not even doing the sidewalk. It's there as an option, but I agree with you. They will wear over time. The banners won't wear. I mean, they'll wear,
But not as quickly as people walking on them.
Exactly.
So I think we have a solution.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hunter?
Well, I agree with the mayor. I don't like the idea of the poppies because I think they're gonna wear off and be scruffy looking and just a lot of work doing. We're gonna have to, even if they took them off, they're gonna have to clean the sidewalks and make sure the cement's clean or the paint's not going to bond to it. So I think that's a big chore. As far as banners go, putting the banners up at the Cenotaph and Cardinal and the Legion in Spencerville, I have no problem with that, and put them up and banners on for over the Remembrance Day ceremony. But as far as putting banners, another 50 banners up around and putting banners up, different banners at different times of the year and one thing and another up, it's a great idea, but they end up running into a lot of costs. Those banners don't last very long. You're changing them up one year, the next year you're not putting those same banners up. They're going to be wind beaten and faded, and you're going to end up replacing them, I think. Plus, this cost we're figuring here, this isn't figuring the staff's cost of putting them up and taking them down and changing them all the time, so. I've never thought that it's just my opinion, but they never drew my attention much to. Prescott has them up, different places have them up, and I don't think they draw much attention as far as people look at them once and it's just something hanging on a pole after that. So I think we're farther ahead to do the poppies and put them up, and they're up for a month and a half, and they draw everybody's attention because they're there, and then you take them down and not bothered. There's one less thing the staff to be worried about, so.
I see. I'm a little bit different as far as the Prescott banners go. I think those banners, as you drive in number 2 into Prescott, especially around the Shakespeare Festival time when they have the banners up, I think they look fantastic. I think they're a wonderful tourist marquee. And however, I was just wondering with the outside of the poppy banners, the other banners, did staff have any idea of reaching out to the community, such as the festival committee or the committee here in Spencerville, the Spencerville Business
And community
Connections, and also CCAC and Cardinal for ideas to go on banners and perhaps a monetary offset there as well. I'm just wondering what your idea on that was.
My idea wasn't to contact any of those groups. The idea wasn't to have, like for Spencerville, we would have one set of artwork done up, and that would be it would be on all the poles for the entire season. Same in Cardinal. So I would think that speaking with Councillor or our Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the CDC committee could come up with an idea of artwork for the 3 different areas.
And also too, the Fair Board would be another avenue of exploration. I personally, I like the idea of the banners outside of the poppies myself. But anyway, we do have a recommendation. If there's no other questions, I'm going to look for a mover and seconder for the recommendation. And the recommendation reads that committee recommends that council approve the installation of Remembrance Day themed and community specific banners as indicated above, and direct staff to proceed with the project. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. I have myself and Councillor Dillabaugh.
I'm not really opposed, and I'm not really in favor. I think there needs more discussion here.
Okay, let's have some more discussion.
I'd rather do that than have the motion fail. I think the question is I understand the Remembrance Day theme, and that's fine, but I don't understand the other themes at this point. So was it the intent that these have to, and did the price require that they all be purchased at the same time? Is there some way that we could proceed with the project on a sort of a piecemeal basis, and or even get some ideas as to what the other themes might be in addition to the Remembrance Day theme? I hate to get involved in this degree of stuff, but maybe we staff can give us some idea of what other themes they've got in mind.
Mr. Spencer, would you like to speak to that, or?
Through the chair to Mr. Mayor. To be quite honest with you, I hadn't really thought of the theme work. I was thinking more of getting the actual project up and started, and then speak to the CDC committee about coming up with the ideas of putting the banners up.
So that's fair. We could approve the project in principle.
In principle.
Yes. So well, remember, the motion reads approve the installation themed in community specific banners. So approval in principle, and then that would get the project moving.
It would. Mhm. Do we have to change the recommendation?
Depends on how staff's gonna interpret.
And I'll just
So,
really.
so, Mr. Chair, if the comfort level of committee would be that everybody's on board with the Remembrance Day themed, you could just remove and community-specific banners. And we can start with that, and then we can return to CDC or whatever with respect to the community-specific banners. And sort of stage it if there's a better comfort level that way.
One of the questions I had was, do we, that's quite all right. We're on page 56, Deputy Mayor, and we're just discussing the poppy and pole banners when you came in.
Yes.
And we're just in the process of looking at the recommendation, possibly making a change to it. But my question was, excuse me, do we have to buy that many, or was that number just sort of looked at and sort of said, that's a good number?
No, that's just a set price per banner.
Okay, so, no, but you say there's 20, we're gonna buy 40 more, or 50 banners altogether.
That was
58.
just my decision.
58.
That was my decision.
Okay, so we could start with the, as the mayor indicated, we could start with the poppy theme and go from there and then build on that.
Yes, you could.
Like, I guess what I'm getting at, if we bought 58, is that the price, or are we good at 40?
That's the price regardless you buy one or two.
Yeah, okay, so it really doesn't matter how many we buy at a particular time. So, okay, staff has recommended that we take out of the recommendation and community-specific banners. So the recommendation would read that committee recommends that council approve the installation of Remembrance Day themed banners as indicated above and direct staff to proceed with the project. Am I correct in that?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And just a reminder that we will need a mover and a seconder for that.
Correct, right. Okay, so with the amended recommendation, do I have a mover?
I move it.
Councillor
Second.
Hunter, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh. And I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
It looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on. Okay, now we move to page 58 and 59, and we do have a recommendation with this. And this is the Recreation and Facilities reopening of the Ingredient Center for February 2021. Mr. Spencer, would you highlight this for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we all know, we shut down in late December, and with the announcement last week, being able to reopen today, we installed the ice at Ingredient Center, and the first rental was actually this evening. We were able to get a day ahead. Pretty nice in over the week because of the cold temperatures that we have, as opposed to the humidity that we normally deal with when putting the ice in. So staff did an excellent job doing that. Just indicating the associations that have come back, all of the associations, and I've also was able to arrange the Spencerville Skate Club. Obviously, just has their ice here in Spencerville, and I was able to coordinate giving them a 2-hour slot on Sundays as well. So we've been able to accommodate them and their program, modified a bit, but it was better than not having any ice at all. So this is just a brief information item indicating that all the policies and procedures that were in place prior to are in effect again. We put a new signing this afternoon, and ready to go.
And I understand that the figure skating club will be skating on Saturday. Is that correct?
We have the Prescott Figure Skating Club that run their program. They were there prior to the shutdown.
Yes,
They're there on Wednesday nights and on Saturday.
right,
And then the Spencerville Skate Club is there on Sunday.
right, okay. Yes, my granddaughter informed me tonight that she will be skating on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So, just to.
That's the same program. They were running the program prior to.
Correct, yes, correct. So I informed her that I will be watching from my iPad. Okay, I apologize. There is no recommendation with that. I indicated there was, my mistake. This is just an information item. Any questions or concerns?
I just have.
I'll go with Councillor Gilbaugh first.
No, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Don't fight over it, boys.
I just have, just from my own, through the chair, it says here, we have the Upper Canada Cyclones, Brocco Prescott Figure Skating Club, and a local junior hockey club. Now, Brocco Braves is a local junior hockey club. Is there another junior club that's interested in running?
Through the chair to Councilor Gilbaugh, the local junior club is the South Nova Junior C Rangers.
Oh, junior C, not junior A.
Yep.
Has junior A here, okay.
Well, we do have both there. The U18 Braves are junior A, junior B, and U18 midget.
Okay. And the electronic paper waiver, do we get that on the website? Can the people get that on the website here?
Yes.
One more and I'm done. 50 people. Is that the government or is that us? That we're allowing 50 people in, excluding staff?
For public skating?
Just no more than 50 people will be permitted in the building at a time.
Yes, that's for the public skating and for the ice rentals as well. We only allow 20 parents in per ice rental. The kids on the ice total 30 to 40, depending on the group.
So I can't go down there and watch.
If you can get in one of the 20, you can.
Okay, now
Not
what,
every rental has 20 parents that want to come in.
now does that exclude the people upstairs in the walking area? Or does that have anything to do with the 50 people?
Through the chair to Councilor Gilbaugh, the walking track are included in the 50.
So you're allowed 20, say 40, so you're allowed 10 people.
That is correct.
Thank you.
In the evenings, during the daytime, the walkers, that's primarily when the walking track gets utilized.
They can do
a
it
lot,
and nobody's there.
and there's no one there. That is correct.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I did want to raise a concern. This is the reopening of the rinks. I felt should have been in consultation with council because there are staffing issues and there are financial issues. We all know that when we operate both arenas, we're losing around $250,000 to $260,000 a year. So there is a financial aspect to this. Now, I must say that by consolidating into one arena here in Cardinal, we're tightening up the operation, and I'm very reassured by Mr. Spencer's words that we have a very robust rental revenue contracted to come in and use this ice, although I don't know for what period of time, and I'm not sure what our penetration is on usage of the ice time, but I'm a little bit reassured. However, I'm just making the larger point, and I did discuss this with the CAO. I felt that, it would have been more appropriate, even if it did require a special council meeting, and I know that staff was in a hurry to get up and running right away, and I commend them for their eagerness to do that. But I just felt that this was an issue that should have had some council input prior. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, and it's done, it's done. I commend everybody for getting it up and running, but I still have some financial concerns here.
Thank you. Councillor or Deputy Mayor?
No.
Councillor Hunter?
Well, I have similar concerns to the mayor. I understand we wanted to get a rink open, the same as some of the other ones, but really think this was an issue that should have come back to council before we decided to open these up. We don't know how long these rinks are gonna stay open. I think everybody's kind of jumping the gun here and opening these rinks up this quick. We don't know where we're gonna stand. I would like to see us wait for a week or two to see how things are gonna play out here in this opening before we invested a lot of money to open rinks up, maybe to end up in 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the way, have to shut them down again. So I think people would understand waiting a little bit longer than they will understand if we have to shut them down. So
Point taken, thank you. Okay, there's no recommendation on this, so we,
If I may, Mr. Chair? No,
Yes.
Just one comment, that one is on me, but I took that as under the administrative function with respect to that, and
there, we have it.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, thank you. We'll move on now, and we'll go to 7D, which is the 2020 surplus equipment report. And I believe Chief Moore, are you going to highlight this?
I certainly can, Mr. Chair.
Very good, thank you.
So as per bylaw 21557, our procurement bylaw, an annual report is to be submitted to council. And I guess the long and the short of it here is your report from 2020.
I did the addition and we come up with $81,340. I believe that is correct. I just have a question to staff. The money that we have received, where does that money actually go? As far as we'll say the budget is concerned, does it go to various departments or does it go to one specific area?
so thank you. I'll defer to the treasurer to speak to that.
Very good, Melanie, thank you.
Certainly, through the chair, any of the revenue that is received goes to the applicable department where the asset was. So most of the fire department auction stuff went to, you'll see that as a line item in the fire department, and the vacant building or vacant property on South Street was a economic development. You'll see that in that particular department, and then all the public works trucks would be shown as revenue within public works.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Treasurer, and Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
So follow up through the chair to the treasurer. So I'm looking at the two public works items, about $3,000. So does that go to the 2021 operational budget? Revenue in the operational budget?
It would go in, through the chair, it would go in under 2020. These items were sold in 2020, so the revenue would be recognized in 2020.
Oh, okay. And the same with the vacant property on South Street. And I didn't remember where that went.
That is ECDev, although typically we have, we flow money. So when we purchase that property, we have a liability account, and the 55,000 would have offset some of the costs of purchasing that building, or that lot, as well as any other legal or survey costs. So there's not a whole lot of gain necessarily with that particular sale of land.
Okay, and through the chair, if I may, and we don't operate a sort of a land for sale reserve the way we do in the industrial land.
Correct. We have, it's basically set up as a liability account. So any costs that have incurred are logged to that liability account, and it's kept on the books until such time as the asset is sold. And then we just recoup the money from there is a little bit of proceeds. You'll see the difference of the proceeds. I think it turned out to be about just over $6,000 was gained on the sale of the land, that's actually shown as true revenue.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That's the number that I was fishing for. Just a slight revenue over the liability. Okay.
Correct.
And then just one other thing now, I think Councillor Dillaba indicated he was going to speak to this,
Yes.
and I think it was about van 1.
No, it wasn't, Mr. Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but that's okay.
So-
What it was, may I do it, Chair?
Go ahead.
What it was we had on page 4 of the previous committee of the whole of, we're gonna start taking our stuff to Rito auction. And when I look at this here, that we got from the mowers and that from Marshall's auction, I think we did pretty good. I kind of like to keep it local if we can at an auction, instead of going all the way down to Winchester if we can. Give Mr. Marshall some business. He's right in our own backyard. And I see that he got, to me, pretty reasonable prices for the lawnmowers and the spreaders and so on. So that's just my feeling I want to bring up, to clarify that I think we should be looking at Mr. Marshall.
And I guess,
Mr. Mayor.
I guess my point on that
That's
is,
the third.
so first of all, to the treasurer, that van 1 has been, just recently been declared surplus, and it probably won't get sold until 2021. Did we declare it surplus in 2021, or did we declare it surplus in 2020? I'm just looking to see which year the revenue is gonna come in. Through the chair.
Through the chair, the revenue is going to come in the year, through the chair, it's going to come in the revenue is going to be realized in the year in which it actually happens. So even though we declared it surplus, and I'm not exactly sure whether, I believe it was just done this year, but the auction, it is this year, yeah, earlier this year we declared it surplus. But it's the money and the date of sale is the determination of when the revenue's recognized.
Fair enough. Okay, so then the second point is the stuff that was sold at Marshall auction, and I quite agree with Councillor Dillaba. They did very well on realizing good value, but those are all what I would call small type items that would be attractive at Marshall's auction house. Van 1 is a different kind of animal completely. I think we were expecting something around $5,000 for it. And, I think that, it's more appropriately placed at a vehicle auction than at an equipment or an equipment auction. And if you notice the trucks, the big trucks, where we're getting 8,000 and 8,500 and 3,500, those are all trade-in amounts. They're not on the open market. So anyway, we made the decision for Rito auction. I think we should let that sit and see what we realize on that van.
So if I may, through the chair, that we were originally leaning towards Rito auctions. However, we elected to go with Gov Deals.
With what?
Gov Deals, or government deals.
Oh,
Yes.
And I think that committee and council will be pleased with the results.
okay, so broader market, Mr. Chair.
It is, I go on that site quite often. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add? Okay, Councillor Hunter?
No, I think this just shows that no matter what piece of stuff that we're getting rid of, it pays to go to auction to do it. We had a truck earlier in the year that we put out by tender and give away for $200. So I think it pays to show that it goes to public tender and you get value for it. So.
Okay. Okay, nothing else? Okay, there's no recommendation with that. So that was just an information item. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on now to 7E, which is the Fire Safety Plan Box Bylaw. And Chief, would you like to highlight this? And there is a recommendation with this new, I believe it's a new bylaw that would have to be brought in.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. As the article states, the fire code requires certain buildings to have an approved and implemented fire safety plan. The fire safety plan is to ensure building has all the necessary safety systems, equipment, and procedures in place to protect people from fire and other emergencies. It's also vital. It kind of does two things. It allows the owner. It educates them as to their responsibilities and how to service and maintain their equipment, but it also serves as a document for the fire department. If there is an emergency, we can find out things like floor plans, the location of any residents that may need assistance, or any specific hazards within the building or facility. Boxes cost generally in the area of $120, and we could supply those just to make it simple for people on a cost recovery basis. That's about it. The bylaw is to ensure consistency throughout the township when it comes to fire safety plans.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I have several questions and comments, but I'll wait. So I'll start for your concerns or questions. I'll start with Councillor Hunter.
I guess I have a few. What buildings you're the chair, fire chief, what buildings, types of buildings in the township are going to be required to have these boxes?
Through the chair, the buildings are already required to have fire safety plans, and they're to be stored in a manner approved by the fire chief. So technically they should be stored in a fire safety plan box now. But that would be any residential properties with a occupant load greater than 10. Most of our industrial occupancies, flammable liquids, laboratories, boarding and lodging and rooming houses, and generally any kind of an apartment building.
Just so a single family dwelling with 2 or 3 people, it's not mandatory.
Correct.
And the reason I ask that is this came up back in the early 2000s, 2004, I believe it was. And the public outcry and backlash was pretty severe. So I'm glad you said certain buildings and clarified the content of the buildings on that. Thank you for that. But I'll come back. Deputy Mayor.
Absolutely. My only question, Chief Moore, and maybe it was just me misunderstanding it, but is it to be stored on site at the fire department or stored on site at each industrial site or business?
Through the chair, it would be the fire safety plan will be stored at each property.
At each property. So it's not a duplication then. It's already being done. You're not asking for anything new to be done. So that it's not something that's going to end up in both locations. That's kind of what
that is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, Deputy Mayor?
Nope, that's it.
Mr. Mayor.
I think people are missing the point of what the chief is trying to tell us. They're obligated to have these plans. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have them, does it, Chief?
That is correct.
And I think your worry is that they don't. Or at least if they do, they're not accessible to you.
That is correct.
All right, so here's my question. We have 2 buildings, residential buildings that are heavily owned by the county and occupied by residents, the Maples here and Helen Street. Do those 2 buildings have fire safety plans and in fire safety boxes?
Through the chair, yes, they do.
They do. All right, now we have a number of other apartment buildings, and I'm thinking of Reed Street in Cardinal and the one on County Road 2, just at the west side where the bridge north side of the bridge. Those 2 buildings, do they have fire safety plans?
Through the chair, one of the buildings has a fire safety plan, and I do not believe this second one does. If it does, it's not updated.
All right, so the issue now then becomes ensuring ourselves that the owners of those buildings are, number one, creating a fire safety plan as they're obligated to do. And the second point is the point of your bylaw, which is to ensure that those plans are located in a fire safety box accessible to the fire department, either just inside the door or just outside the door, as I understand the bylaw. So I commend you for bringing this to our attention and for bringing this forward. And because it's buildings that are residential over 10 occupants, and because it applies to businesses, Prisbian, Giant Tiger, for example, Giant Tiger, do they have a fire safety plan in a fire safety box?
Through the chair, yes, they do.
See, how about Prisbian, do they?
Yes, they do.
How about Greenfield, do they?
And what about the port?
How about our port?
Now, we've asked them 2 questions. Ask them 1 question at a time.
I honestly, I can't, through the chair, I can't remember every single one.
I think we're well advised to follow your advice here. I'd like to move the recommendation
I just have one.
after Mr. Dillon.
After Mr.
Councilor
Dillon,
Dillon.
yes.
When you said that it serves 2 purposes, one for it educates the owner of their equipment, and it helps us with your safety of where people are, et cetera, et cetera. Is there, with this bylaw, is there more equipment that they have to purchase for this box, or is it just the standard fire extinguishers in each hallway, and if you get it inspected yearly and so on and so forth?
Through the chair, all of the stuff in the fire safety plan is all requirements of the fire code. So this is merely where they're going to store their fire safety plan.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Most of the questions and concerns I had were already answered. However, I do have one regarding apartment buildings, such as, we'll say, either one of the 2 in Cardinal. Inside that box, would there have to be keys for each individual apartment?
Through the chair, no, we do not recommend keys to individual units be in the box. What we're looking for is any kind of a service area or elevator, if the building has an elevator, or service rooms, the type of rooms where we would possibly have to enter, but we do not want keys to people's residences.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or questions? I do have a mover for the recommendation, which reads that committee recommends that council approve the fire safety plan box bylaw. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councilor Dilba, thank you. So that's moved by Mayor Seo and seconded by Councilor Dilba. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Chief.
Okay, moving on to the 7F, which is the 2020 Cardinal Water System Summary Report. And I believe our Director of Operations, Mr. Shaw, will highlight this. This is an annual report, which is, I believe, due every March, I believe it is. However, Mr. Shaw, would you like to highlight this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Owners of municipal drinking water systems are required to ensure that by no later than March 31st of each year, water system summary report is prepared in accordance with subsection 2 and 3 of Schedule 22-2, Ontario Regulations 17003, the State Drinking Water Act, and for the preceding calendar year. Basically, this report is attached for your review, and there's a recommendation that committee recommends that council receive and review the 2020 annual water summary report for the Cardinal water system.
Okay, you've had a chance to read the briefing note and the information attached. Questions or concerns?
Just a comment.
Go
Mr.
go
Chair.
ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, these, and they're, I'm gonna make the same comment, won't make it over and over and over again because there are several of these reports. But I think, the long and the short of it is that these systems have been audited, by the ministry. And basically, each one of the systems has come up with what I would call a nice clean audit. And, gives us assurances to know that we're operating, our staff is operating these systems in the manner in which they were intended to be operated and providing the good service to the residents. So I just want to make note of that. I'm prepared to move the first recommendation that we have in front of us here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else?
I do.
Yes,
Thank you, to the chair. I have one on page 73 that the off-site verification of documents have not been completed at the time of the report preparation on November 4th. Is that, have we received that now or no?
No, we haven't. So basically, it's been a little bit delayed, and sorry, through the chair. It's been delayed because of the COVID quite a bit. And typically it takes months, once an inspection is completed, to get the report back. So it could be 3 months, sometimes 4 months before we get the report. So we're basically, all the information was submitted online this year. There was an actual site inspection. So the inspector showed up for a day, did a site inspection, and then staff basically emailed all the data to the inspector for his review. So we're still waiting on the final report.
Is this happen every year too? We're always waiting for the reports before we get them, or?
Through the chair, typically, yes. It's worse this year because
Because of COVID?
yeah.
That was my only concern about that.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I have a mover with Mayor Sale. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hunter, thank you. All in favor? And that's carried, thank you. And we will now move on to the next one, which is the 2020 annual Cardinal wastewater treatment plant report. And we do have a recommendation on this, 2 parts to it. And Mr. Shaw, would you like to highlight this report as well?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the wastewater treatment plant, this is an annual summary report. The annual report for water is typically based on Schedule 23-24 lab results. So if you recall from the annuals we got, the water or wastewater report is a bit different. It's just a summary report. Actually, it is quite identical to or similar to the water summary report. So this has to be submitted to the MECP prior to March 31st and of the following year. And in accordance with conditions set out in section 13 of the Cardinal wastewater treatment plant environmental compliance approval, or ECA. And the report is before you tonight for consideration.
Thank you. Questions or concerns? See, yes, Mr. Mayor.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 84 of 131, there's something just caught my eye. I'd like to, through the chair, ask this question. So at the top of the page, where the problem is sewer lateral stoppages, there were 7. And so the township received complaints for 7 sewage lateral stoppage backups. All stoppages were investigated, addressed, and those originating from township properties were remediated by township staff or by utilizing a combination of methods and resources to clear the obstructions and restore the service. So my question was, how many of them were township related and how many of them were property owner related? And that would be helpful information for me. And if the director doesn't have it with them, maybe we could get it sent to us over the next day or so.
Through the chair, I don't have that information at this time.
Would it be possible then to submit that when you sort it out? Great, thank you. Any other concerns or questions? Okay, I'd like to get a mover for the recommendation. Recommendation reads that committee recommends that council, number 1, receive and review the 2020 annual report for the Cardinal wastewater treatment plant, and 2, direct staff to submit the report to the MECP and to make the report available to the public. Could I get a mover, please? Councillor Hunter, and a seconder.
Seconded.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Okay, this brings us to 7H, which is the 2020 water summary report, and this is for the Edwardsburg Industrial Park water. And Mr. Shaw, is this your department again?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, for the standalone distribution system, which makes up the industrial park water system, owners of municipal drinking water systems are required to ensure that no later than March 31st again of the year, a water system summary report is prepared in accordance with subsection 2.3 in schedule 22-2 of 17003. And the report is before you tonight for your consideration. Recommendation, the committee recommends that council receive and review the 2020 water summary report for Edwardsburg Industrial Park water system.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Questions, concerns? I've had a chance to read the briefing notes. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just bring everyone's attention to page 96 and 131. And on the top of that page, we have the monthly flow data in cubic meters. And if I recall correctly, our agreement with Prescott is for 6,000 cubic meters per month with a yearly cap. And it seems to me we're allowed to go over the 6,000 cubic meters per month times 12 once or twice during the year. But I would especially note that, our peak seems to be somewhere around 5,000 cubic meters per month. And I think maybe there's one month that might have slipped over in 2019. But basically, we're under our not our contractual obligations, but our contractual allowances, if I can put it that way, with Prescott. And I think that gives us some room for negotiation if we happen to be successful with the job site challenge. That's the first point. And I just note as well, though, that on page 95 of 131, the total water consumed in 2020 was 43,000 cubic meters. That's total for 2020, compared with 40,960 cubic meters in 2019, which is an increase of approximately 5%. So I'd just like to, through the chair, ask if we can put our finger on where that extra cubic meters, looks like about 3,000 cubic meters, where was it used? Did we have a new user on the system? I can't remember.
Through the chair, not any large extra users. I think anything additional was small lines in money. There was a problem with the meter at Johnny Tiger, which we had to have replaced, which took some time to get in, so that would be a contributor. And I'm not sure about any excessive, I don't know the numbers on, the Greenfield and Prismium and so forth, whether they had used any extra or not. On occasion, Greenfield, they have to work on some of their equipment. They do switch over to town water rather than river water from the pumping station. That may be part of it during their shutdown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a mover for the recommendation, please. Could I have a mover? Councillor Hunter, and second?
Second.
Deputy Mayor Deschamps, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, carried. Okay, that brings us to the 2021 Industrial Park budget.
Sewer budget.
Yes, sewer budget, which is 7I. and pages 97 to 99. And there is a recommendation with this that committee recommends the council adopt the 2021 budget estimates and maintain the current fee structure for 2021 for the industrial park sewer system. Questions or concerns from the briefing note? Hearing none. Could I have a mover for the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the next one, which is the 2021 draft industrial park water budget. That's 7J. The briefing note and the recommendation that committee recommends the council adopt the 2021 budget estimates and maintain the fee structure for the industrial park system. There had been 2 other fee increases, I do believe, in the past few years, but none this year. Questions or concerns from the briefing note? Seeing none, can I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, and second by Councillor Dillabaugh. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the scrap metal recycling agreement, 7K. And that's starting on page 102. And it's shown here as the boneyard agreement. The briefing note is in front of you. There is a recommendation. The recommendation is that committee recommends that council repeal bylaw 2016-65 and enter into a new service agreement with J&D Enterprises as presented and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement. Questions or concerns? I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh.
No, it's a 25-75 split. I think I can understand Mr. Martell's point of view there for himself on that matter. I use it quite regular. He does a good job. Thank God that we have someone like that in our backyard who does help us out a lot, especially in the fridges. So I have no problem with that at all. The amount of money is a big problem.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I mean, we're taking a 25% cut of, well, actually, we're taking a 50% cut of what we were getting. So, I mean, that is worrisome. I guess through the chair, I have a question, and the question that I have: did we make any effort to determine whether or not there was another recycler that would be available to us to provide the same service at a more compensable rate? So through the chair, if I might.
Certainly. To staff.
Through the chair, not at this time, we haven't. I guess Mr. Martell has been with the township since around 2014, 2013, and in this central location. I'm not really aware of other scrap dealers in the area that we could approach, but we could look into it definitely.
Well, certainly Fast Eddie is in that business. I know he comes with a bit of reputation, but that's just one. And I'm not arguing the fact that Mr. Martell's been at the site is helpful, and the fact that he takes material at his home site is also a benefit. I realize that, but I do think that this is, unless I miss my guess, if I read it correctly, I do think it's a 1-year agreement and prior to a renewal at the end of the 1-year period. Oh, I know what it is. It's a 1-year agreement, but it renews automatically, if I've got it correctly. So I would hope that, and by the way, I didn't see anything in here that said that it had to be terminated. It just says renews automatically. So I would hope that prior to it renewing automatically, the staff would at least canvass the marketplace to see whether or not there might be another recycler that would be interested. And I know that right now the market for steel and used steel products is very low, but that will change over a period of time, and may be able to find other interest. So I'll just leave that as a hanging question, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Littleton,
I already said my piece. I think it's great.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm very, thank you through the chair, just a comment, and I'm very comfortable with the way everything is written in this document, and I think the service that is provided by the Boneyard to the residents is good. Hope to see it continue.
Councillor Hunter.
I guess I have a couple of questions. Are we snow plowing and maintaining the road into the Boneyard and graveling it?
I had that question as well, but I'll be more than happy to hear your answer.
Through the chair, yes, we do plow up to the pile. That was part of the agreement, and we also did maintenance on the site, like piling the steel, loading trailers and so forth. And part of the amended agreement or new agreement is basically that he would take on that general maintenance. If you look up on your notes there, the highlighted draft, it's a draft of the old 2016 bylaw, but basically the suggestions in there, the blue items are from Mr. Martell's suggestions, and the other highlighted ones are from staff's discussions.
So,
excuse me, through the chair, on number 7, the contractor was solely responsible for winding road site signage maintenance and site appearance, but the and stroked out and maintenance and appearance. And he has included that with the exception of the gravel maintenance provided as needed for the road right away, which is what we're doing currently. The other part of it is he also collects tires, which we are the sole benefits of the proceeds from the tire collection. So he also collects tires at his sites. We pick them up, and then the sales is strictly for the township. There's no split on the tire, so he's kind of adding that extra.
one other question through the chair to staff. I see this as an automatic renewal here. I'm kind of like the mayor. I don't like this section in there that it's an automatic renewal. I think it should be at the discretion of both parties each year where the contract's renewed, that it's not just automatic, that it, because we're starting to do engineering this year on a new transfer site. And I believe that with the diagrams that we had drew up before and the availability of storing steel and tires and one thing and another in a new site, I think we'd have a great interest in other recyclers probably being interested in making a contract with the township to handle this. So for now, I'm fine with the agreement as it is right now, but I think it's something that should be not automatically renewed, but automatically looked at every year.
Anything else? Okay, my feelings are very much the same regarding the automatic renewal. I'd like to see discussion on that before a renewal. And the other question I have is regarding the tires. And I think it was just a couple of weeks ago that we had quite a discussion about the new transfer site. And part of situation with the new transfer site was we needed a place to store tires to get it off the old site. Now, is it my understanding that Martel is going to take the tires from the transfer site as we know it today? No, if they come there, they stay there. Now I understand, a little more clearer, okay? But any tires that are taken directly to his location, they will remain there until we have enough to dispose of them. Oh, okay. And we plow his laneway in so far, how far would that be approximately? Can you tell me? A quarter of a mile, half a mile, 30 feet? What would the distance be that we plow his laneway?
I would say 150 meters maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, now that is
Yeah.
primary to allow our citizens to drive in there anytime through the week to dispose of various items.
In his bin.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, so we do have a recommendation here. And the recommendation, I believe I read the recommendation, did I not? Anyway, I'll read it again. The committee recommends that council repeal bylaw 2016-65 and enter into a new service agreement with JD Enterprises as presented and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement. Could I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Deschamps is moving. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Dillabaugh, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us now to the last action information item, which is 7L, regulate off-road vehicles within the township. Again, this is that appears to be a new bylaw repealing the old bylaws. And it's on pages 114 to 131. And there is a recommendation here as well. Recommendation is in three parts. That committee recommends that council adopt a bylaw to regulate the operation of off-road vehicle access on designated municipal highways and unopened road allowance within the township. 2, repeal all old bylaws that would be inconsistent with the provisions of the new bylaw. And 3, to approve the drafted short form wording for off-road vehicle bylaw, set fines and direct staff to submit for review and approval to the Ministry of the Attorney General. Okay, the briefing notes are in front of you. They are somewhat lengthy. Questions or concerns? Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
So, as I understand this, we're XTVs, the extreme terrain vehicles, are off all roads. And ORMs, the off-road motorcycles, are off all roads. And then we're gonna permit the operation of the others on those roads that are designated. Schedule A, which is the designated highways, and Schedule B and C, which are the unopened road. Well, C is the map. A is the designated highways, B is the unopened road allowances, and C is the map of everything.
Correct.
So that's the way I understand what I'm looking at here. Now, there's just one part here that bothers me, and I'm more than prepared to move the recommendation, provided that we can get some changes to number 2 before the actual bylaw comes before council. And I'll tell you what my concern is. The wording is repeal all old bylaws that would be inconsistent with the provisions of the new bylaw. So I would like to see those bylaws named here instead of all old bylaws that would be inconsistent. It would say repeal bylaws and then would name them. We may miss one, but I would feel more comfortable missing one than I would this, because I think this is too open a wording and it leaves it open. Well, was it inconsistent or wasn't it inconsistent? We don't think it was. We do some, I mean, let's not leave it so that it's open to interpretation and misinterpretation. Let's say what old bylaws we're gonna repeal.
So under number 2, you just want the bylaws listed as they appear.
Yep.
That's all. I'll go to our clerk, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. If you note section 6.4 in the drafted bylaw, it does outline all the bylaws that are inconsistent, which is 2015-28, 2017-25, and 2018-64. So it is built within the bylaw that comes to council.
Good for you. Where do you see that,
What
sorry?
page is that?
Page 1.
It's on page
131. 120.
Page what?
120.
6.4. They're the 3 of them are right there, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so can we not have them in the recommendation then?
I don't see any reason why not. Is
It's
that,
already got them.
yeah, if they're already mentioned, is there any reason why we just can't put those numbers in in the number 2 recommendation?
through the chair. That's totally fine.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have those added in. Councilor Dillabaugh.
Yeah, through the chair, I just have one, maybe I'm nitpicking here. 3.6 on page 119.
Mine too.
Was it? I was out today, actually, it was the reason why, I was out this morning and I had 2 neighbors, they plow their driveway with that. And they're out at 5:30 in the morning. And we got a bylaw from 11 PM to 7 AM. I just wouldn't want a bylaw officer to hit them on that technicality, probably found their way out to go to work.
Actually, I have something to, before the clerk answers that, I also have one. It's regarding the village of Cardinal and ATVs with plows. A lot of ATVs and plows are now doing snow work.
Yeah.
And I happen to be one of the recipients of that work. Is there provisions for people doing snow removal work or snow moving work? Because right now within the village, I don't think you can actually legally drive an ATV. So how are we going to get around that? Go ahead, clerk.
So through the chair, section 3.6 from the 11 PM to 7 AM, that's only on the township roadways. It wouldn't restrict somebody from plowing their own driveway. However, we have not factored into somebody going from door to door with an ATV with a plow attached to plow other people's driveways. We've never received that request. I'm sure it's done all the time. I have neighbors that do it for mine sometimes, but we could factor in some type of exemption for that. However, we would have to be careful that somebody just doesn't attach a plow onto the front of an ATV and go touring throughout the township as an exemption.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
My concern would be through the chair, through 3.6. I mean, we live in a rural township where there's definitely lots of hunters, anglers that live here that are certainly out before 7 in the morning. The thought that you can't, offload your ATV and head down a short stretch of road to, either go to a fishing spot or a hunting spot. That kind of troubles me. I get the idea, but I'm not so sure that the timeframes that great.
Point, Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
information here. All bylaw officers have this, all officers have discretionary powers. And, you know, to me, this is a great example. If a bylaw officer is going to abuse powers by ticketing somebody at 6:30 in the morning for plowing their driveway, tells me a lot about his use of discretionary powers. I don't think it's something we need to worry about, but if we are worried about it, why don't we just change 7 a.m. to 5 a.m.?
Leave 11.
Yeah.
So Clark, go ahead.
Through the chair, another option would be to change the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. To be sunset to sunrise. That gives a little bit more wiggle room.
Hear that, Mr. Chairman? Sorry.
Instead of the time she's suggesting sunset to sunrise.
Oh, because that's even tighter.
It is, because through the winter, remember, it's dark at 4:30.
Yeah, so
Just start tomorrow.
through the chair, it varies greatly for municipalities. I place that in there just as a general numbers, but it's the will of committee and council to select their restrictions.
I think 5 a.m. would be fine myself.
Change to 5 a.m., Mr. Chairman?
Sure. So Clark, can you just change that to 5 a.m.?
Through the chair, it's not a problem.
That's fine. Sorry,
No, that's fine, Mr. Chair. I think, I do believe we're reading a little too much into this.
Yeah.
Like overnight last night, if somebody was out at 3 a.m. plowing their driveway, that's reasonable. If somebody's out at 3 a.m. running up and down the roads with an ATV, probably individuals in their house aren't going to take too kindly to it. You know, I really, I really think common sense and intent prevails. Like the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. is to stop people running the roads through the overnight hours, which are, you know, causing disturbance, not performing a function, you know, like a snow blower, right? Okay. What you're going to get is noise complaints over ATVs running the roads at 4 a.m. on a beautiful, you know, summer overnight with everybody with their windows open. I don't think you're going to get anybody complaining about an ATV plowing out their driveway so they can get to work.
Fair comment, Mr. Chair.
that is, yes.
Fair
Okay.
comment.
Just leave it as it is then.
Fine with me.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. So the recommendation is, which I have read, I just have to find it. Sorry, I need help with the page number. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, yes, there was 3, and we haven't read them out, and number 2 is going to have the 3 bylaws added into it, so it will be slightly amended for approval at council. So can I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Hunter, a seconder,
Seconded.
and we have a seconder.
I have a question.
Question, go ahead.
Yeah, just so I'm clear on section 2 under restrictions 2.1. So are you gonna be able to drive an XTV or a dirt bike in the township? Anywhere?
Private property.
That's what it's saying.
If you have somebody has a back 40 off of number 2 highway with trails, they could go there.
Yeah, but you have to put it in the back of your pickup truck and drive it to your own private property to take it
Whatever, yeah.
anywhere. You can't drive it along the side of a road to access it. I got a problem with that.
Anyone else have a problem with that?
No.
I don't.
Well, just, excuse me, no, it's, the only ones you can't, as I understood the bylaw, the only ones you can't are the ones that are named,
There's 2 of them.
yeah, there's 2 of them.
The off-road motorcycles.
The XTVs, which is the extreme terrain vehicles,
Yeah.
and the ORM, the off-road motorcycles,
Yeah, so a dirt bike.
dirt bikes, yeah, so they're private, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with it because I've seen the damage that these guys do, especially along our Legion Way a couple of years ago. They tore it up down there, really, really good. That's my opinion. If they want to buy these and use them on private roads, that's all well and good. But I don't think the taxpayer should have to fix the side of the road when they churn it all up, or fix any other part of township property when they churn it all up. Okay, we back to the recommendation. Did I get a mover and seconder for it?
Mr. Chair, you did. You had Councillor Hunter moving and the
Yes.
mayor seconding.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Deputy Mayor Deschamps, thank you. Okay. Just bear with me for a moment. I'll get my papers in order. Okay, that brings us to council inquiries and notices of motion. I do have one, but I'll wait until I go around the table. Councillor Billabong?
No.
Mr. Mayor?
No.
Deputy Mayor? And Councillor Hunter? Okay, the inquiry that I have is to staff. And on the weekend, there was an email sent out from a resident of Cardinal regarding the snow removal on Dundas Street and by the railway tracks. I visited the site yesterday and it looked pretty good, but so am I under the assumption that staff looked after that particular problem in regards to the sidewalk plow, I believe it is?
So the chair will have to defer to the director of operations if he knows if anything was done on the weekend or not.
I'm not positive. I know the one individual who usually runs the highway was out. I think just early, though. I don't believe on the weekends.
Okay, well,
I
anyway,
can't tell.
What was the issue?
well, the issue was when the sidewalk plow goes along, it leaves messes that people have problem navigating on the sidewalks. In other words, the sidewalks are not, I guess, bare. So there was some concern. I read the email, I walked out in that area, and yes, there was difficulty. And part of the difficulty is still there, but not in front of the stores. It seems that when our sidewalk plow goes along, it clears certain portions, and then maybe there's a problem with timing here where the snowplow comes by and buries the sidewalk again. But what my concern is at the corner of Dundas and Bridge, at one time, all 4 corners, you could not get a mobility piece of equipment on or off the sidewalk to across the street. Couldn't get, and as Deputy Mayor just said, you couldn't get over the railway tracks. There's two sidewalks that run along Bridge Street from the Boar's Nest to Dundas Street in front of the old hardware store, where the town square, I'll refer to it as the town square is now. There's two sidewalks. The sidewalk closest to the park or town square, you cannot get a mobility device down there. You just can't do it. There's a snowbank this high, and we have an aging population, and folks, I'm going to tell you that until you have a family member that has a mobility issue, a lot of these things you just don't see. But I'll tell you, even people putting garbage out on the sidewalk is a mobility hazard. It's just brutal. And can we not carry a snow shovel on the sidewalk plow or something? And when we have an intersection, they stop the machine and shovel it away? Or do we not have a follow-up vehicle that'll come around and inspect our intersections to make sure that these accesses, you know, we go through an awful lot of accessibility here in this township. But boy, when a handicapped mobility unit can't move down our sidewalks, we do have a bit of a problem. So what I'm getting at is my inquiry. I'm not, I just hope that you've heard what I said, and I do believe that the proponent of the email on the weekend is satisfied, but because yesterday in front of that particular store, the walkway looked pretty good. So I was under the impression that somebody had done something, but maybe not. So anyway, I would just ask you to follow up on my comments to look at these intersections and make sure that we can be accessible. So.
But Mr. Chairman,
yes,
if I may, is this not a question? Maybe people have to be a little tiny bit patient. I mean, I'm looking at the situation that we're in right now tonight and tomorrow morning. Our streets and our sidewalks tomorrow morning are all going to have had today's work on them, and our crew can only work 15 hours, and then they have to take time off, and they're going to come back. And the roads and the sidewalks tomorrow morning are not going to be in top shape. I know that. And probably they're not going to be navigable by wheelchairs or scooters, probably not. But you know what? In 3 or 4 days, provided the snow stops, our crews will have them cleaned right up. And I know, you know, I mean, I think we can't have expectations raised to the point where you can't expect a snowstorm last night and come out this morning at 9 o'clock and find the streets clear. You just can't.
No, that's not the case.
You know, I mean, I think it's a question of people have to have just a tiny bit of patience and some more realistic expectations.
Before, Mr. Mayor, just a comment, before this last snowstorm, which started last night, we hadn't had that much snow for, I'm going to guess, 10 days. And Dundas Street, there's one section of Dundas Street on the southwest corner where you cannot get a mobility wheelchair or walker across that hump.
Okay,
And
so
that was 10 days ago.
okay, so I stand
And
corrected.
that's what I'm looking at. I don't expect by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning our sidewalks to be passable. People with mobility issues will not take advantage of that. They will wait 2 or 3 days before they can get out, unless there's an emergency. Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair to the CAO or board, the area that, you know, that I personally was involved in with helping the person with the scooter get it unstuck was at the area of the tracks, which seemed to be, you know, to me, I walked the entire Dundas and had a good look at it all. And I'm not a snowplow guy, but the spot that seemed the biggest concern was the tracks. So is Ingredion responsible to do something where their tracks are, or is it solely us that because that seemed like it was very different there in comparison to the rest of it. I thought the rest of the sidewalk was quite well done, actually. It's just the area really concerned was the tracks.
So through the chair, I'll try to answer that, and the director of operations can correct me if I'm incorrect. But when it comes to tracks, there's a requirement to lift the blade when crossing those tracks. And one of the other I'm going to say issues and concerns with the tracks on Dundas Street is that the tracks were lowered and there is a depression. So each freeze thaw cycle that we've had, which we had a number of them, where we had real cold evenings, and then we'd have the sun come out and it would melt a little bit, and then it would freeze at night. So I have no doubt that some of those areas were slippery, and I'm sure that the sidewalk plow had been out a few times with respect to salting and sanding materials, but it is a bit of an area. And if there are other particular spots that the crew may have missed, by all means bring them forward and we'll take a look at it. We're very respectful with when it comes to accessibility limitations, and if there's an area that was overlooked, please let us know. Up until the weekend, I hadn't received a concern, so I guess I'm a little surprised that there's this many locations that are now arising, but we'll certainly look into it.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? No one else? Okay, we'll move on to the mayor's report.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to speak about one thing, and just to make council aware of it. So for the past month, I've been dealing with what I consider to be an increasingly serious issue at the Circle K gas bar and convenience store in Cardinal. And I know that this is an open meeting, and I have no hesitation making the report that I'm going to make. So we have a situation. There is a group home at 516 County Road 2. And one of the individuals in that group home keeps appearing at the Circle K and bothering the customers to the point now that the customers leave. And the owner of the Circle K has been phoning me every day, every second day, every third day, complaining about the fact that this individual keeps coming into his store, bothering his customers, actually being quite rude to them, asking them for cigarettes, and if the customer doesn't give her cigarettes, then she yells at them, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, this individual from the group home is accompanied by a worker from the group home who takes no action whatsoever. The group home, as a corporate entity, apparently has a policy of hands off. They cannot touch this individual. This individual is 51 years of age, but has some intellectual challenges and is not really responsible for their own actions. And the group home takes no responsibility for those actions, nor do they make any effort to correct the behavior. The proprietor is beside himself. I've talked to the OPP, asked them to become involved. They've become involved to some extent, but the group home is owned and operated by a company that domiciles in Alberta someplace. I've been talking to the supervisor at the site. I've been talking to the supervisor's supervisor at the site. Neither of them appear to be able to handle the situation. The police have been talking to the corporate entity apparently in Alberta. I'm to get an update on them tomorrow, but this is now dragging on for more like 5 to 6 weeks. I'm making council aware of it because it's not something that I think our business people should have to tolerate. They've issued tickets. They've issued no trespass orders. They've done a number of things to bring this situation under control, but 2 to 3 times per day, this individual will show up at a store, come right inside, go right behind his counter, and they know that there's a certain amount of pilferage going on. And nobody seems to be able to help this business owner. I'm bringing it to the attention of council because at some point, I'm going to ask council to get involved. I'm not at this point, but at some point I will. Thank you very much.
That's all for your report, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Thank you.
Just a question for,
Go ahead, yes.
through the chair to the mayor. Do we have, excuse my ignorance on this, but do we have a bylaw that allows for that to be a group home?
Well, that's the problem. It is a group home. It's a duplex on County Road 2 that was built by, I don't know who, and is now rented to this company from Alberta. And there appears to be nothing that we can do about it because our zoning bylaws don't give us any power in the siting or the location of group homes. Apparently, they give us no powers. And now that it exists, we seem to be stuck with it. And we don't seem to have, that I can find, any zoning mechanisms that will help us. I don't know to what extent the staff is aware of this problem, but my understanding from a previous council was that we can't deal with it from a zoning point of view.
Does the Circle K own the property around his?
Yeah.
So that is owned.
The person that I'm talking to is in charge of the Circle K and the property, the building and its property.
Well, can he not get a, and I don't know what the word is, I'm gonna use the word restraining order.
He has issued no trespass orders. The police have issued no trespass orders.
Doesn't work.
The individual is mentally challenged.
Correct.
And is not fully responsible for their own actions. But they're not being supervised by the group home.
Right.
The people from the group home are just standing there watching.
Well, that's even if they stand. A lot of the time they're driving the van alongside.
Are they?
I saw her by herself. I picked her up.
No, she's not by herself. She is with the van's usually there.
Well, I don't know. I saw her on the pavement there in front of Angie's. I picked her up last Saturday. I thought she fell. She was crying. I didn't know any different. 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I was in front of
Yeah,
at the dollar store.
yeah. She was in the corner there.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, good.
Yes, okay. I'm over. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the mayor? Okay, we'll move on to number 10, which is question period.
If I may, I just have one quick question. Earlier, Councillor Hunter mentioned something about the engineering plans being drawn up for a transfer site. Is this a waste transfer site? And if so, where will this be located and when would it open?
This is what Councillor Hunter was referring to was our existing transfer site, which is reaching its end of use in the foreseeable future. And the new transfer site that was discussed was across the road from it.
Is this Scott Road?
On Scott Road,
I see.
at the corner of Scott Road and Blair.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Okay, we have closed session, and I see Mr. Williams has joined us by Zoom, I do believe. And anyway, do I need a?
You don't want to bring the motion to go in closed session, and then we can take probably 5 minutes just to.
The motion first?
Yeah.
1 second.
Okay,
1 second.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
thank you, Connor, take care.
See you, Connor.
Okay,
Myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps. Committee proceed into closed session at 8:29 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to section 239-2, labor relations or employee negotiations, specifically union negotiations, and minutes of closed session dated October 19th, 2020.
thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a couple of
Okay,
Good to go? Okay,
move this out, second by Deputy Mayor Dishon, that the closed meeting does now adjourn and the open meeting committee does now resume at 9:39 PM.
thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Okay, now is the report out of closed session, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, we came out of closed session at 9:39 PM after discussing the minutes of October 19th and discussing section 239-2 labor relations or employee negotiations.
Mr. Chair, so we'll need to approve the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Moved by myself and second by the mayor. The committee of the whole receives and approves the closed session minutes dated October 19th, 2020.
thank you. Okay, so we've also made the report out of closed session.
Call the question on this one.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. And you have adjournment. Okay, report out of closed session is done. That brings us now to adjournment.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that committee of the whole now does adjourn at 9:40.
9:40 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all.